Hello class. Today we review our final unit, one variable data. This is our unit 7, so part of this unit we did after the March break and part of it we did before the March break. Make sure that you go and take a look at the list of the class notes that are included on the Google Classroom because it includes a lot of the terminology and the vocabulary that we learned during this unit that I'm not going to specifically go over during these examples. So in our first question, Tessa wants to know the eye color of the 12 students in her dance class. So the first thing we want to do is identify the population. The population is Tessa's dance class. And we need to make sure that when we're identifying a population that we are specific. Now, part B, should she use a sample or a census? So there's only 12 students in her dance class. So she should use a census because it wouldn't take very long to ask or sample all 12 of them. And part C, what type of data is this? So this is categorical data. She's not asking for numbers or measuring. So Tessa did her dance class and the results are listed below. And we're going to create a circle graph or a pie chart to represent the results. And I'm just going to quickly write in here what the tally looks like. Usually when you're counting something, you can use little lines to represent that. You don't have to, but I'm just going to add them here so we know what that word tally refers to. Now, frequency is just a count or that number for our tally, so how many times did that actually show up. So for the eye color blue, there were 4 students that had the eye color blue, there were 6 that had the eye color brown, and 2 that had the eye color green. So what we need to do here is we need to find the probability basically, and then we need to convert it into degrees. And when I'm saying probability, we want to represent these proportions as a fraction, and then we're going to do it as a decimal and as a percent to be able to put all that information onto our circle graph. So we're going to use some of the things that we learned from last unit. So we must find a proportion, which looks like how we did our probabilities. And we want to convert to a decimal. So what we're going to be doing here is recognizing that a circle has 360 degrees. And our pie chart below is split into 10-degree segments. So I'm going to just put a little reminder at the top of that. So it's 360 degrees split into 10-degree segments. And that will help us to actually put our information on there once we have calculated it. So let's start off with blue eyes. So there are a total of 12 students altogether, and 4 out of 12 have blue eyes. Now, to write that as a decimal, we do 4 divided by 12, and we get 0.333, and so on. Now, you can keep that whole number, if you wish, on your calculator, and you're going to get a more accurate answer. What we want to do with that number is we want to take it, and we then want to multiply it by 360 degrees. That is going to give us exactly 120 degrees if you have kept all of those decimal places on your calculator. And so this tells us how much of that circle blue eyes should be represented by. We're going to do the same thing for brown eyes and for green eyes before we put our information on. So for brown eyes, that would be 6 out of 12, which is the same as 0.5. So we do 0.5 times 360 degrees, and that gives us 180 80 degrees. And lastly, we have green eyes. So there are 2 out of 12 people that have green eyes. And as a decimal, that is 0.166 and so on. So lots of sixes that follow that. And we're going to keep all those decimal places. So 0.166 and so on. Multiply it by 360 degrees and we get 60 degrees exactly. So we have blue represented by 120 degrees, brown represented by 180 degrees, and green represented by 60 degrees. We're going to take all of that information and we're going to put it onto our circle graph. So what we're going to start off by doing is I'm going to try and keep it simple. I'm going to start off with the brown eyes, even though that was the second one I did. That's 180 degrees or half of our circle. So you should use a ruler to do this. Okay, I've split our circle in half. And now we are going to put in our information about the brown eyes. Oops. Have it on the wrong thing there. So brown. Okay, so we're going to write that that represents our brown. Now we're going to do the blue. So the blue is represented by 120 degrees. Now remember, each of these little segments is 10 degrees. So that means we need to count out 10 of them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and then 12. Okay, and then what's left over, that is 60 degrees. So we should have 6 segments left over there, of 6 of 10 degrees. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then 6. Great. Okay, so let's finish labeling with our colors. So this is blue. This is blue right here. And then we have green right here. Now we need to put another piece of information on here, and that is the percent. So again, we want to think back to our previous unit, converting decimals to percents. So we need to multiply by 100. And in this case, we are going to round our numbers to a whole number. So 0.33333, that's going to round to 33%. And for the brown eyes, 0.5 times 100, that is 50%. And then for the green eyes, we have 0.16666. That rounds to 17%. And we're going to include that information on our graph. Okay, so we can visually see how much of that pie chart is being taken up, and then we also have that numerical percent there. And let's do a quick title here. The eye color in Tessa's dance class. Okay, let's continue on. So Tessa wants to know the number of cousins the students at her school have. Should she use a sample or a census? Now in this case, she should for sure use a sample. So schools are pretty big usually, and going around and asking every single person in the school how many cousins they have could take quite a while. Okay, so she should use a sample. Schools are big and may have hundreds or thousands of students. And what type of data is this? Well, this time she's asking for a number, or she's measuring something. In this case, she's asking for a number. So this is numerical data. And there's more than one type of numerical data. This is discrete data. And we know it's discrete because we can only have like whole numbers. There's no range, there's no in between. You can't have 2.5 cousins. Okay, let's move on to our next question. So in order to find out about the cousins, Tessa decides to do random stratified sampling. Okay, and if you're not sure what this is, go back and look at the notes for this unit. And she does this on the student population. She wants to sample a total of 50 students. There are 1,000 students at her school, so we need to calculate how many in each grade she should sample. Okay, so we have grades 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. And we know the number of students in each of those grades, and those all add up to 1,000 as a total. So we know that she wants to sample 50 students, so we need to figure out what percentage that is of the total. So to figure out our percentage, we have 50 divided by 1,000, and that gives us 0.05 or 5%. So she wants to sample 5%. So what we need to do is we need to find 5% of the number of students in each grade. Okay, so we're going to be calculating our number to sample from each grade. So we are going to multiply 160 by 0.05. So that's 5% as a decimal. That gives me 8. We're going to do the same thing for each grade. Okay, and so we find 11 from grade 5, 12 from grade 6, 10 from grade 7, and 9 from grade 8. And you can always do a check and add them all up, and here we get 50 in total. So the first step that you have to do here in order to get that 0.05 is you need to first calculate the proportion of the student population. So our next question, we have Becca, who on each day on her way to school, she counts the number of ants she passes on the sidewalk. So over the course of 6 days, she saw the following. So on one day, she saw 11, another 0, another 2, another 25, another 3, and another 7. So we're going to start out by determining the mean number of ants she saw each day. And then we're going to round to a whole number if we need to, because we're talking about things that are alive here. So you can't just have part of an ant. So in order to find the mean, we have to add all of our numbers together. So 11 plus 0 plus 2 plus 25 plus 3 plus 7. So that gives us 48 in total. And there was 6 days there and 6 pieces of data. So we need to do 48 divided by 6. Now that is going to give us 8. So we don't need to actually round here because it's exactly 8. So she saw 8 ants per day as an average or as the mean. Next up, we're going to determine the median. Now, when you're determining the median, you need to put your numbers in order from smallest to largest. So 0, 2, 3, 7, 11, and 25. Once you've put them in order from smallest to largest, you then need to find the middle number. Now, in our case, there is no middle number because we have an even number of pieces of data, right? We have 6 individual numbers here. That's an even number, so there's no middle number. There are kind of 2 numbers that are in the middle. So when we have the case when there's 2 numbers in the middle, what we need to do is we need to take their mean. So we do have the 3 and the 7. We do 3 plus 7, and then we want to divide that by 2. So get the mean or get the average. So that gives us 10 divided by 2, which gives us 5. So this here, this 5, this is our median. Okay, and let's just quickly write that when there's no middle number, you need to take the mean. Okay, lastly, we are asked to calculate the standard deviation and then to round to a whole number. So there's many steps of taking the standard deviation, and step 1 is to calculate the mean, and we already have that. So step 1 is the mean, we already have that, that is 8. So that's already done. Now step 2 is to subtract the mean from each of the data points. So we have 11 minus 8, and that gives us 3. We have 0 minus 8, that gives us negative 8. We have 2 minus 8, that gives us negative 6. We have 25 minus 8, and that gives us 17. We have 3 minus 8, and that gives us negative 5. And then 7 minus 8, and that gives us negative 1. So that is step 2. Now step 3 is to square that result. So square the result of step 2. Okay, and what we mean by that is to give it an exponent of 2. So I can write that out for each of them and then do the calculation. So 3 squared is 9, negative 8 squared is positive 64, negative 6 squared is positive 36, 17 squared is 289, negative 5 squared is 25, and negative 1 squared is positive 1. So here for step 3, we have all of those numbers. So we've squared all of our answers from step 2. Now step 4 is to find the sum of all of those numbers we just got. So sum means we're adding everything together. So 9 plus 64 plus 36 plus 289 plus 25 plus 1. So we're going to add all those together and we get 424. Okay, so that's the first step of step 4, or the first part of step 4. The second part of step 4 is to take that 424 and we're going to divide it by 5. So this number 5 here, this is 1 less than the number of data points. Now, this part is different whether you're looking at a sample or at a population, but I've just kept it as kind of one rule in any case to simplify it for us. Okay, so that is part of our step 4, and that answer is exactly 84.8. And step 5, which is the last one, this gives us our standard deviation. This, we take the square root of our answer from number 4, so the square root of 84.8, and then that gives us our standard deviation. And here we're going to be rounding it to a whole number. Sometimes you don't round to a whole number, just follow the instructions. So this gives us 9.20 and so on, and we're going to round it to approximately 9. So right here, this is our standard deviation. For more details on standard deviation, what it means, the median, and all that, please look at the notes file that is posted on the Google